the Crustacean Tier List. We're gonna find out what crustaceans, what crabs, and lobsters, and other sea things with pinchers. We're gonna find out the meta, okay? We're gonna do a learning today. Our one brain cell is gonna be activated. Caveman brain activated. Oh. Oh my god. My claw broke! That was
Crustaceans
scary.
are some of the most popular builds in the entire game. In fact, they're so popular that it's become sort of a meme that every player will eventually drop their current character and switch to being a crab main.
See, no wonder crab souls took off. Min-maxing just at the character selector.
But just how competitively viable are crustaceans really? Which unique abilities does the crustacean class make use of that enabled them to become such a resilient force across so many of the game's expansions and balance patches? And are they actually an optimal build choice in the current meta?
Yeah, we gotta find out.
Or are they just an easy-to-pilot, low-skill floor character?
Ooh,
we'll discuss.
You're only playing the crab because it's OP. You're not even good at the game. Crabs are just overtuned. You only play them if you're dumb and you can't play video games.
All this and more as we rank the most notable builds on the Crustacean Tier List. This video was sponsored by GiveWell. Before we get into the tier list, let's first discuss the Crustacean faction's general game strategy and the key abilities they use to accomplish it.
Yeah, we gotta chase the
Crustaceans are part of
meta.
the larger faction of arthropods, and so crustaceans inherit all the main perks of the arthropod class.
Nice.
The most important one, of course, is their exoskeletal armor, which provides a huge defense boost. Given that most crustaceans have to contend with some of the most dangerous builds in the game,
look at him go!
This extra protection is crucial to their viability. Their carapace, which is the thickest, sturdiest, and most important link in their armor, can block attacks from seabird beaks, fish jaws, and many of the other threats common in aquatic environments. It does, however, have the same weakness as all exoskeleton-type builds, which is that their defense stat drops drastically for a short time when leveling up. If their armor ever does fail them, this doesn't immediately mean game over.
He's getting out of
Crustaceans
containment!
have the incredible ability to regenerate HP after taking damage, even being able to regrow entire limbs. So even something as devastating as losing a claw or a leg isn't something crustaceans can't recover from, and in fact can be the optimal play to distract an opponent and escape a fight. This ability makes crustaceans a very beginner-friendly build, as you can make a lot of mistakes and still progress through your playthrough relatively unhindered. Crustaceans also have uniquely specialized limbs that come to 2 points rather than 1. This makes it super straightforward to spec them into various different specialized opposable claws, which can be optimized for slicing, crushing, piercing, or grappling.
Or pinching. There's many variety of pinchy claws.
I've said in the past that I think crustaceans are a broadly mid-tier.
That's so scary. How could he just do that? What? Who just goes out and is like, yoink? I see a crab, yoink!
I've said in the past that I think crustaceans are a broadly mid-tier class, and I think this still holds up.
Look at that size
Crustaceans
of that
have
thing.
a lot of interesting tools at their disposal, but
why do crabs in real life actually look like the Crab Souls game, unironically? Like, how did... It literally does look like a Souls-like game because they are so willing to battle things like 3 times their size.
to their middle-of-the-road stat spread, they are constantly fighting an uphill battle against the many high-tier threats they need to contend with, and have to play things perfectly to not get run over in these matchups. So, let's see how the individual crustacean builds fare and get into the tier list.
Alright, the Barnacle.
Starting us off in F tier, we have the Barnacle. The Barnacle is a crustacean build with an almost completely AFK strategy. As a barnacle larva, you find a spot and then attach to it and filter feed for the rest of your playthrough. Now, I'm not dunking on players who enjoy idle games. I'm a fan myself. However, this strategy does have some major flaws.
Guys, he's the
Despite
mobile
the fact
gamer.
That barnacles have the highest defense stat of any crustacean,
gamer.
the survivability of a barnacle is entirely contingent on their choice of parking space.
It's very
Barnacles can attach to just about any surface, from ship hulls to cement walls, to whales and even other crustaceans. Choosing a spot on a non-living surface leaves the barnacle vulnerable to predators. As high as their defense stat may be, there are plenty of builds that are willing to invest in anti-shell defense abilities, like the acidic attacks of the starfish or the drilling attacks of the whelk snail.
I didn't realize that starfish had like an acidic attack. That's terrifying.
Neither of which are uncommon on the reefs and coastlines that barnacles call home. But if they opt for a living host, which is easier said than done by the way, then their survivability is completely tied to the survival of their host, a tenuous gambit in a metagame as hostile as the ocean server. Whales are a pretty safe choice, but opportunities to secure real estate on a whale are few and far between. Much more likely you'll need to settle for
That's
property
gonna be a
on the shell of
crazy
another
ride.
crustacean, which, as we'll see later on this list, is quite a gamble.
Guys, I feel like these make for better armor. Actually, unironically, in the Crab Souls game, don't they have them as like an equipable friend you could take to battle? They make a really good sidekick, you know?
Personally, I'd say if you want to play a mostly AFK marine build, opt for the Scallop, as you'll still get to chill and filter feed most of the time, but can
We
still
just
escape
equip
if
them
need
as
be.
armor, okay?
Also in F tier, we have the Shrimp. Now, Shrimp are a super diverse group with a ton of interesting strategies, but in general, Shrimp make very poor use of the Crustacean build's unique abilities.
Oh no!
Broadly speaking,
He
Shrimp have
got.
weak legs, no eye stalks, and small claws.
F's in the
no
chat,
eye
he got
stalks might
got.
seem trivial, but eye stalks are actually a pretty useful ability, allowing a player to take cover in the sand or under the seabed, while still remaining vigilant. Shrimp
Nice.
rely heavily on that same strategy.
Oh my
but
god, look at
because
his
they
little
cannot
head peeking out with his derpy eyeballs. He is hiding.
surveil their surroundings while hiding, a clever predator can easily just wait until they resurface and pick them off. Attacking a shrimp is also a lot less risky than attacking most crustaceans,
Oh my.
as their damage-dealing abilities are far worse than the rest of the faction. The shrimp's scaled-down appendages are a trade-off meant to buff its mobility. Shrimps have spec'd into shorter, flatter legs that increase their aquatic movement speed in a way somewhat reminiscent of a fish's pelvic fins. This is a neat idea that means shrimp can freely swim
He's just got little nubbins, alright? He's just got little tiny nubbins.
rather than walking along the ocean floor. But in practice, this kind of just meant that
Little
shrimp ended up
steppies.
as the seahorses of the crustacean faction. A tankier but slower moving swimmer that can't adequately defend itself or evade attacks, so it gets bullied by every
Oh
other
my
nearby
gosh,
player.
look at how small they are. I didn't realize they were that much smaller than seahorses. My goodness.
Shrimp do have one escapability, in that they can very quickly dash backwards.
Well,
but
wait,
this is of
are
course
some
very
shrimp much bigger than others? I'm guessing there's different kinds, because these guys look bigger.
predictable and exploitable by experienced
Oh,
players.
not a shrimp
Now,
in this example. It said it in the bottom corner behind me. My bad, chat. That was probably a lobster.
It's
That was a
important to
bigger
note that
fella.
While they may not have the best stats, crafty shrimp mains have been able to reach some level of viability.
Let me
in the
know if
meta,
enemies spawn.
either
I
by
got
speccing
you.
into debuff cleansing abilities and playing as a predator support class.
Bro, he was walking on. Oh, that's a dangerous game you're playing. Being the dentist for that fish.
Abilities and playing as a predator support class, or by abusing a quirk of the game engine, which allows them to fire off powerful
Not the
short-range
Hadoken. I did not know shrimp had the Hadoken ability. You know, now I like them a little better.
sonic projectiles called cavitation bubbles that can stun other players. These are both respectable strategies that merit higher tier placement, but as a whole, shrimp are stuck in the bottom tier.
Damn.
First, in D tier, we've got the Isopod. Other than the Barnacle, which literally cannot move, the Isopod has the highest base defense stat of any
I was
crustacean
gonna
on this
say,
list.
he looks like a little tanky boy, you know?
Its shell is perfect for deflecting attacks, and when they curl into a ball like an armadillo, there are very few predators that can threaten them unless they're several orders of magnitude larger outright. However, the Isopod has essentially no damage-dealing abilities whatsoever.
I feel like he's the definition of like the introvert of the ocean. Like when anything bothers him, he's just like, nope. I'm gonna curl up and wait till this is done. Then I'm gonna go about my day. I'm just not gonna interact with anything. Wake me up when they leave.
No attacks, no poison, nothing to threaten aggressive players with. And so against a persistent attacker,
my
it will essentially
God!
always lose.
God, he's so big. He's so big compared to this little guy.
Persistent attacker, it will essentially
Ooh.
always lose. Isopods are a diverse and widely distributed group, with both terrestrial and aquatic variants. The terrestrial variants, known as woodlice, pillbugs, and roly-polies, function very similarly to miniature cockroaches, using their flat shape to wedge themselves into hard-to-reach positions. And
Alright, now I'm gonna say, alright, I don't know how big these ones are, but roly-polies are tiny, so they get a free pass and they're not as creepy. They don't give me the ick cockroaches do.
only leaving the safety of these places in
I don't know
order
if
to
that's just
scavenge for
me.
loot. The larger aquatic variants of the isopod are usually similar in their strategy, but can also opt for a parasitic playstyle, where they actually fuse with a fish player, destroying and replacing the fish's tongue. This parasitic strategy is great for farming XP and is super AFK, but does come with pretty much all the same risks I mentioned about the Barnacle.
Oh, wait. So is the crab, the guy in the in-between, the big crab in the in-between? How he has the creepy thing come out of his eyeball? Is that one of these? I'll pull it up in case I'm not making sense. There it is. Okay, see the thing comes out of his eye patch? I'm like, oh, look, I bet you it's one of those. Anyways.
If the fish gets attacked and defeated, the Isopod usually goes down with the ship. Technically, if given the chance, they could detach and escape, but in the marine meta, chances like that are quite rare, and without a host, they're likely to just get picked off anyway. Not the worst crustacean, but it's leaving a lot on the table not making use of the crustacean's highly customizable forelimbs. Next in D tier we have the crayfish, also known as the Crawdad. This is a smaller variant of the lobster subclass, which mainly sticks to freshwater servers. This means that unlike the lobster, which needs to be prepared to contend with the likes of sharks, octopus, eels, and the multitude of dangerous threats you'd find in the ocean servers, the worst things a crayfish might run into would probably be something like a turtle or largemouth bass. And yet even in this much less punishing environment, crayfish still underperform. They have solid matchups against frogs, which is true of essentially every other build in existence as well, and they can sometimes hold their own against freshwater fish due to their armor, but pretty much anything beyond
it was like his entire body size.
That, and they begin to struggle. They don't have claws that are anywhere near as powerful as some of the other crustaceans on this list, and so when confronted with an adversary, they often lose if they can't escape. Their only real advantage is that their smaller size opens up a lot of additional options to where they can run for cover and hide, as they can fit into very small openings between rocks and debris on a river.
Well, they can do like a stealth pinch, you know? They can hide and then like, surprise! Pinchies!
Bed. However, because they often aggregate so close to the shoreline, they're vulnerable to being picked off by birds, whose pinpoint precision strikes can hit them even in partial cover. Without proper offensive capabilities, they'll always find themselves outclassed by their more powerful relative. A build which I think we've name-dropped enough times already to just go ahead and move on to.
We need the bigger version. We need the lobster.
First in C tier, we have the lobster. Lobsters are a solid marine tier build with lots of strengths, the most obvious of which is their incredibly large and powerful claws, which grant the lobster one of the highest grip strengths in the entire game, able to easily crush through the defenses of just about any other player, and inflict devastating damage in the process.
Oh my god!
This is excellent for defense, and also for taking control of an objective or point of interest on the seafloor.
They have
Similar
big
to shrimp,
damage
lobsters
pinches.
also have fairly decent mobility.
Oh my
Although
goodness!
The only direction
You
they
just
can
did a
move quickly
backflip.
is directly backwards.
Woo!
This is all quite solid, however, the lobster does have its own share of weaknesses in addition to the standard crustacean weaknesses. This backward mobility is fairly limiting, and means that attacking a lobster from behind often leaves them with very little counterplay options.
Oh, so we can back that ass up, he can put it in reverse.
As their claws cannot reach backwards, and if they try to use their burst mobility option, their only choice will be to move directly towards you, unless they slowly reposition themselves so that their back faces away from the threat.
He's doing his best.
This is in contrast to the next build on our list, which I think is a bit more versatile in its mobility.
True
Next in C tier, we finally arrive at the crab build. The poster child for the crustacean class, and one of the most reliable and consistent mid-tiers in the entire game.
Nice.
Crab claws are extremely customizable, able to be optimized for whatever best suits the current meta. Some spec into smaller, more precise claws that enable to capture small prey more easily. Some spec into sharp-edged claws used for slashing at soft-bodied opponents, such as cephalopods. And some opt for pointed claws, perfect for jabbing at pesky fish who can't mind their business.
We've got variety in how we can level up, you know?
Sets crabs apart from other crustaceans is that they've opted not to spec into the pleon trait. The pleon is the rear abdomen seen on most other crustaceans we've discussed so far. It's the tail part which allows shrimp and lobsters to use that special burst mobility option.
We are no mere
the trade-off,
pleon!
Though, is that the pleon vastly increases their hurt box and functions as a weak point. In order to have the flexibility required to give them that quick movement, it can't be as heavily armored as the rest of them. So, while crayfish, shrimp, and lobsters fold pretty quickly when being attacked from behind, crabs can usually just shrug it off. However, just because they can't dash backward instantly like other crustaceans can,
in the game.
doesn't
Skill
mean
issue.
crabs are immobile. Instead, crabs focus on lateral mobility, which turns out is often much more useful for dodging attacks. They can quickly swim or dash to the left or right when needed, and although this might not be as impressive as the lobster's dash, it's still often enough to save their life anyway. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that I think crabs are at all overpowered. They still get bodied plenty, especially by builds that spec into high intelligence. But the strategy that goes into optimizing your character's hurt box is not something I think we should overlook, as that actually is a pretty high-level play.
I mean,
first in B tier, we have the Hermit Crab. Now, unlike basic crabs, Hermit crabs do have a pleon, which they need to protect by scavenging and equipping the shell of a defeated snail player.
Hey yo, it's the Crab Soul's main character.
Technically, this means they aren't true crabs, but what really matters is that this ability is busted. It allows them to match the defense stat of the Barnacle while retaining their ability to move. And on top of all that, the shells themselves can be augmented with extra perks, courtesy of sea anemone players. And using this combo, Hermit crabs can add a toxic sting to their defense too. I won't spend too much time on Hermit crabs because I've already got a full video about them. But just understand that they've turned the main weakness of the false crab crustaceans into a major strength. The largest variant of the hermit crab, the coconut crab, can actually reach such giant sizes that it surpasses the need for a protective shell.
Oh my god. He's so big! Oh my goodness!
Since there's essentially nothing that's able to threaten it. And by dropping the heavy shell, they gain the ability to climb.
I didn't know these existed! What the hell? You're supposed to be in the ocean! Get the f off that tree!
Which can allow them to even turn the tables on bird mains, which normally have an oppressive matchup.
You go back in the ocean where you belong. I don't want to see that.
Next in B tier, we have the Copapod. Now, this may seem like a weird inclusion on this tier list, as I usually don't discuss builds from the microbe weight class. But copapods really do deserve a mention, as they pretty much have the entire zooplankton metagame on lock. They're one of the most numerous builds in the entire game, and can survive almost anywhere due to a multitude of elemental resistances.
Holographic meatloaf again? My favorite!
They're almost like water bears in a way, except in addition to being quite durable, they're also easily the most mobile of all plankton builds. Most other zooplankton only start out in that weight class, using their microscopic size to avoid detection from larger predators. However, as they level up, they increase in size and phase out of the planktonic metagame entirely. However, while in their planktonic stage, they're usually not super competitive, as they've spent all of their evolution points on abilities that they only unlock later on. Copapods, on the other hand, are fully optimized to max out their viability against other zooplankton, and thus completely dominate the meta in that space. They're not completely invincible, of course, and do often get taken down by colonial microbes, such as the Portuguese man-o-war and its relatives. But among free-roaming zooplankton, copapods reign pretty much uncontested in their niche. This is especially problematic for human mains, because copapods also ally with Vibrio bacteria to gain the bioluminescence ability, but can also transmit the deadly disease cholera.
Oh. I'll be honest, I did not realize there was, like, micro-level crustaceans.
And at the top of our list, in A tier, we have the Mantis Shrimp. The Mantis Shrimp is famously one of the most stacked builds the game has ever seen, at least when it comes to offense. Instead of the standard crustacean grappling claws, Mantis Shrimp opt for either raptorial blades or bludgeoning clubs, which they can swing with truly unparalleled strength. These attacks deal devastating damage to any player unlucky enough to be caught on the receiving end. And in many cases, these attacks result in a one-hit kill. Now, the Mantis Shrimp has a lot of hype and attention surrounding it, with a lot of players decrying the Mantis Shrimp as OP and broken and so on. The hype around its power stat is absolutely deserved. However, we can't forget that this build has a body plan roughly similar to the build that I've rated second lowest on this tier list. Their large, less heavily armored pleon sticks out quite far from their carapace, which can leave them vulnerable to ambush attacks, just like a regular shrimp or lobster, which is not an uncommon occurrence given their lack of camouflage. In addition, their small fins and small legs don't exactly translate to a high mobility stat, which is why, despite the fact that they're packing incredible heat, Mantis Shrimp usually only hunt the absolute slowest of prey: clams, scallops, and snails.
Yeah, but I just really like how he does a big punch. Like, that's really hype. I'd put him on our team just to see him wail on someone, you know?
This isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, I think the existence of a proper tank buster build is healthy
yeah,
for
he's
the
got the
overall
big
metagame.
jumpy nerf,
But I do think the power of the Mantis Shrimp gets exaggerated a lot on forums and discussion boards. Abilities like being able to see color and polarize light in a unique way, or the bonus sonic damage effect their punches create, these are fun little quirks, but I don't think they significantly affect the Mantis Shrimp's place on the tier list.
Dude, I think so. The ability of punch, that speaks to me spiritually. I'm too biased. I'd put him in S tier.
Give them running legs and the ability to breathe on dry land, and we'd probably need to start discussing a ban though. Overall, I think crustaceans are in a solid spot in the current meta. Not overpowered, but not to be underestimated either. Crustaceans and insects are closely related, and are the most successful factions within the arthropod class. So it's only natural that they'd constantly be compared against each other. Insects are far more dominant on land, whereas crustaceans reign supreme in the water.
See, I can excuse some crustaceans that don't look as much like insects, but it's a fine line, alright? When they start having really long legs and creepy crawling around on land, like some of them, I'm like, nope.
Though they're similar in many ways, insects have a lot of unique abilities that crustaceans do not, such as venom, eusociality, and most importantly, flight.
Can I get a happy B-day?
Oh, right!
Rosiebellmoo, big love, Rosiebellmoo peak.
Thank you for the biddies! Is it your birthday? Happy birthday!
Meanwhile, most of the important abilities we see in crustaceans are also found in the insect faction. Sturdy defensive armor, the ability to equip shells of defeated tanks, quick—
I don't know. Overall, I feel like from a looks basic, outside of jumping spiders and like maybe bumblebees, like I pass on all the insects, alright? Not that some of these crustaceans aren't ugly. The insects have a higher chance of giving me the EBGBs. Also, you know, some of them taste really good.
burst mobility,
I'm not about to eat
limbs.
the insects.
These are all things insects can do too. I will give credit where it's due though. Crustaceans do have an edge when it comes to that regen perk I mentioned. Insects can regenerate every time they molt, but insects actually stop molting once
That's terrifying! See, I don't want that. I don't care how OP it is. No!
they reach their level cap and can no longer regenerate after that. This coincides with insects getting their wings, which is kind of paradoxical because it means their most fragile feature is also the only feature they can never regenerate. Crustaceans, by contrast, continue to molt and regenerate even after reaching their full potential, reinforcing the idea.
Like, somehow watching him molt was a lot less creepy. I'm not saying that all crustaceans aren't creepy or have insect-like features that also give me the ick, but
that crustaceans are a more beginner-friendly build.
There's a nausea debuff when they start to look too much like spiders, alright? Insects always come with the nausea debuff if they're on my team.
While many are important parts of their ecosystems, many others, including the copepods mentioned in this video, can carry diseases. These diseases can devastate communities that don't have the infrastructure to prevent them. And unfortunately, these same communities are often the ones least equipped to fight off these same diseases. It's the season of giving, and if you're anything like me, you want to help but worry that your donations could go much further and do a lot more good if used in the most efficient way.
Money.
This is where today's sponsor GiveWell comes in. GiveWell was founded to help donors with that exact dilemma. They pore over independent studies and charity data to help donors direct their funds to evidence-backed organizations that are saving and improving lives.
I don't know, guys. I like the
on GiveWell, I was able to find that one of the best ways to prevent malaria, the disease transmitted by another arthropod, the infamous mosquito,
I like
is
the
to
punching
donate to
boy,
organizations
and I
that
like
focus
the
on providing
Hermit
nets
Crab
medicine
and the
to
regular
communities
crab.
in sub-Saharan Africa, where malaria
All the
is
rest
present.
have too many
I even
legs.
learned it costs on average $5 per person to provide them a net, and $7 to provide them the medicine.
Even the one with the strong punch
GiveWell has now spent over 15 years researching charitable organizations and only directs funding to a few of the highest impact opportunities that they've found. Over 100,000 donors have used GiveWell to donate more than $1 billion. Rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high-impact giving. You can find all their research and recommendations on their site for free. You can make tax-deductible donations to their recommended funds or charities, and GiveWell does not take a cut. If you've never donated to GiveWell's recommended charities before, you can have your donation match up to $100 before the end of the year or as long as matching funds last.
Nice.
To claim your match, go to givewell.org
Everything returns to crabs, true.
and enter TierZoo at checkout. Make sure they know that you heard about GiveWell from TierZoo to get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org to donate or find out more.
Nice
Thank
charity
you for watching,
sponsor.
and I'll see you next time.
Solid. That was a great video. There's an upside to more crab legs. Not to me. The nausea debuff is too strong for me, okay? Mooah, 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 mooah.